Welcome back. We're going to jump right in. Guilty until proven innocent. Sounds like religion. Let's use a real life situation to illustrate what happens when we decide to break from some memorized emotional state and change our minds. I think we can all relate to one common state of being: guilt. So I like to always include its cousin shame because those two go hand in hand and they're two assholes that are always together. So I'm going to use that to illustrate in practical terms how this cycle of thinking and feeling works against us. Then we'll identify some of the efforts of the brain body system is going to make to remain in control and preserve that negative state of being. I wonder if YouTube doesn't promote my channel because I curse so much. I can't help it. Imagine that I don't want to help it. Let me just say that, okay? I like the words that I choose. Imagine that you frequently feel guilty about one thing or another. If something goes wrong in a relationship, a simple miscommunication, someone unreasonably misplacing his or her anger on you, or whatever, you wind up taking the blame and feeling bad. Picture yourself as one of those people who repeatedly say or think, "It was my fault." After 20 years of doing this to yourself, you feel guilty and think guilty thoughts automatically. You have created an environment of guilt for yourself. Other factors have contributed to this, but for now, let's stay with this notion of how your thinking and feeling have created your state of being and your environment. Every time you think a guilty thought, you've signaled your body to reproduce the specific chemicals that make up the feeling of guilt. You've done this so often that your cells are swimming in a sea of guilt chemicals. The receptor sites on your cells adapt so that they can better take in and process this particular chemical expression, that of guilt. The enormous amount of guilt bathing the cells begins to feel normal to them. And eventually, what the body perceives as normal starts to be interpreted as pleasurable. It's like living for years near an airport. You get so used to the noise that you no longer hear it consciously, unless one jet flies lower than usual and the roar of its engines is sounding so much louder, it gets your attention. The same thing happens to your cells. As a result, they literally become desensitized to the chemical feeling of guilt. They will require a stronger, more powerful emotion from you, a higher threshold of stimuli to turn on the next time. And this explains a lot. And when that stronger hit of guilt chemical gets the body's attention, your cells perk up at that stimulation, much like that first cup of Java feels to a coffee drinker. And when each cell divides at the end of its life and makes a daughter cell, the receptor sites on the outside of the new cell will require a higher threshold of guilt to turn them on. Now, the body demands a stronger emotional rush of feeling bad in order to feel alive. You become addicted to guilt by your own doing. Well, this reminds me of somebody I know. Not me, by the way. I don't like feeling guilty, but I know somebody who memorized feeling guilty, and boy, does he deliver. Woo! When anything goes wrong or is awry in your life, you automatically assume that you're the guilty party. And you probably make yourself the guilty party because of everything we just got done reading. But that seems normal to you now. You don't even have to think about feeling guilty. You just are that way. Not only is your mind not conscious of how you express your guilty state by the way of the things you say and do, but your body wants to feel its accustomed level of guilt because that's what you have trained it to do. You have become unconsciously guilty most of the time. Your body has become the mind of guilt. Only when, say, a friend points out that you needn't have apologized to the store clerk for giving you the wrong change do you realize how pervasive this aspect of your personality has become. Let's say that this triggers one of those moments of enlightenment and epiphany, and you think, she's right. Why do I apologize all the time? Why do I take responsibility for everyone else's missteps? After you reflect on your history of constantly pleading guilty, you say to yourself, today I'm going to stop blaming myself and making excuses for other people's bad behaviors. I'm going to change. Because of your decision, you're no longer going to think the same thoughts that produce the same feelings and vice versa. And if you falter, you've made a deal with yourself that you're going to stop and remember your intention. 2 hours goes by and you feel really good. You think, wow, this is actually working. Unfortunately, your body's cells aren't feeling so good. Over the years, you've trained them to demand more molecules of emotion, guilt in this case, in order to fulfill their chemical needs. You trained your body to live as a memorized chemical continuity, but now you're interrupting that, denying its chemicals need, denying it its chemicals needs and going contrary to its subconscious programs. This is so good. I hope you guys are hearing this. Pay attention, pay attention. So this person is addicted to guilt, is the point. The body becomes addicted to guilt or any emotion the same way that it would be addicted to drugs. At first, you only need a little of the emotion or drug, in order to feel it. Shout out to the first time anybody had some of that Mary Jane. Okay, then your body becomes desensitized and your cells require more and more of it just to feel the same again. Trying to change your emotional pattern is like going through drug withdrawal because your body is like dependent on it. Once your cells are no longer getting the usual signals from the brain about feeling guilty, they begin to express concern. Before, the body and mind were working together to produce a state of being called guilt. Now you're no longer thinking and feeling and thinking in the same way. Your intention is to produce more positive thoughts, but the body is still all revved up to produce those feelings of guilt based on your guilty thoughts. So it's like, excuse me, we are not working together. We are not congruent. Think of this as a kind of highly specialized assembly line. Your brain has programmed the body to expect one part that will fit into this larger assembly. All of a sudden, you sent it another part that doesn't fit into the space where the old guilty part once did. An alarm goes off and the whole operation comes to a standstill. Your cells are always spying on what is happening in the brain and the mind. Your body is the best mind reader ever. So everything stops and they stop what they're doing. They look up toward the brain and they're like, what are you doing? You insisted, we are guilty. We loyally followed your thoughts and your feelings for years, or your commands. We subconsciously memorized a program of guilt from your repetitive thoughts and feelings. We changed our receptor sites to reflect your mind. We modified our chemistry so you could automatically feel guilty. We have maintained your internal chemical order, independent of any external circumstances in your life. We are so used to the same chemical order that your new state of being feels uncomfortable, unfamiliar. We want the familiar, that we need that predictable and what feels natural bleep in our life. All of a sudden, you're going to change. We can't have that. So the cells huddle up and they go, let's send a protest message to the brain. But we have to be sneaky because we want her to think she's actually responsible for the thoughts. We don't want the brain to know that they actually came from us. So now the cells send a message marked urgent right up to the brain, right up the spinal cord, to the surface of the thinking brain. I call that the fast track because the message goes straight up the central nervous system in a matter of seconds. At the same time this is happening, the chemistry of the body, the chemistry of guilt, is now at a lower level because you're not thinking and feeling the same way. But this drop does not go unnoticed. A thermostat in the brain called the hypothalamus also sends out an alarm that says, chemical values are going down. Chemical values are going down. We've got to make more. So the hypothalamus signals the thinking brain to revert back to its old habitual ways. This is the slow track because it takes longer for the chemicals to circulate through the bloodstream. The body wants you to return to your memorized chemical self. So it influences you to think in familiar, routine ways. These fast track and slow track cellular responses occur simultaneously. There's so much working against us. And the next thing you know, you start to hear the chatter of the thoughts like these in your head. You're too tired today. You can start tomorrow. Tomorrow's a better day. Really, just you can do it later. And my favorite, this doesn't feel right. We talked about that earlier. If that doesn't work, a second sneak attack occurs. The body mind wants to be in control again. So it starts picking on you a bit. It's okay for you to feel a little bad right now. I mean, it's your father's fault. Don't you feel bad about what you did in your past? In fact, let's look at your past so we can remember why you are this way. Look at you. You're a mess. You're a loser. You're pathetic and you're weak. Your life is a failure and you'll never change. Man, is this really what people sound like in their mind? I hope, yeah. I don't think mine's that bad, but I definitely do the thing where I trace down where I think it all went wrong, and I'll like trace it back. So as you continue this awfulizing, the body is tempting the mind to return to its state as it has unconsciously memorized on a rational level that is absurd. But obviously on some level, it feels good to feel bad because it's familiar and it's like, oh yeah, it feels like home. The moment we listen to those vocalizations, we believe those thoughts and respond by the feeling, by feeling the same familiar feelings, mental amnesia sets in and we forget our original aim. So real. And we're back to why I created SeedSoilWater Spa, and I had such a passion for the morning mindset 2-minute retreat. What did I call it? 2-minute mind retreat, because this is why. And like, it's ironic because I've even forgotten about my own freaking idea, because this is why. Like, we forget the mission, we forget why it's the mission, we forget what we're doing. And that's why I'm hoping, please subscribe to the playlist, or subscribe to the channel, save the playlist, come back and commit to finishing at least this series with us. Let's get people in your life in on this. Like, send it to somebody that you know, send it to somebody that you care about that will be in on this with you, and that you can kind of just remind each other. Because look how easy it is to forget. I've already forgotten why I did SeedSoilWater Spa. I don't even go back and listen to it all the time. I had to like have some things happen to remember, like, ah, crap, don't go back into the unconscious living just because you can. Like, it does take a lot of energy to constantly be choosing to be awake. It's so much easier to just go to sleep again. But if we want to teach our kids how to live a different life and how to think differently, we've got to freaking learn this crap. And it's cool for us too. Okay. The moment we listen to those sub-vocalizations, believe those thoughts, and respond by the feeling, the same familiar feelings, mental amnesia sets in and we forgot our original aim. The funny thing is that we actually begin to believe what the body is telling the brain to say to us. We believe what the body is telling the brain to say to us. We immerse ourselves back into this automatic program in return to being our old self. Most of us can relate to this little scenario. It's no different from any habit that we've tried to break. Whether we're addicted to cigarettes, chocolate, alcohol, shopping, gambling, or biting our nails, the moment we cease the habitual action, chaos rages between the body and the mind. The thoughts we embrace are intimately identified with the feelings of what it would be like to experience the indulgence. When we give into the cravings, we will keep producing the same outcomes in our lives because the mind and body are in opposition. When we give in to the cravings, we will keep producing the same outcomes in our lives because the mind and body are in opposition. Our thoughts and feelings are working against each other. And if the body has become the mind, we will always fall prey to how we feel. And that's, hey, remember those of us that come from the hood streets? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But where we'd be like, that's so fake. She's fake, or like, I'm not fake, so I'm going to tell you what it is, So about that, like, it's going to feel fake. You're going to feel like you're being fake. And it's going to feel like you're being inauthentic to yourself when you just refuse to like give in to like the story. Just know that in advance, and it's okay, because you're recreating a new self, and you can just be fake for a while until the new you sets in, and then it's not fake anymore because you've recreated yourself. As long as we use familiar feelings as a barometer, as feedback on our efforts to change, we will always talk ourselves out of greatness. We'll never be able to think greater than our own internal environment. We will never be able to see a world of possible outcomes other than the negative ones from our past. Our thoughts and feelings have that much power over us. So I'm going to leave this one off by saying all that in the opposite. Now that we know that our familiar feelings are not the barometer, and now that we know that we can choose a mission and apply our mindset to it and tell our body that our body is going to submit to the mission, we can talk ourselves into greatness. We can think greater than our internal environment. We can see past right now into the world of possibilities and infinite possible outcomes, and we will be able to dream into the positive, amazing future that is literally exponential in possibilities and infinite in opportunities, and just waiting for us to attune to that timeline. So start thinking about it, define it, write it down, write it in current, I am so grateful now, that tense, like now, I am so grateful now, and get yourself all excited and emotionally get yourself excited like that it's happened, and feel the feelings. If it's relief, if it's joy, if it's excitement, whatever it is, tap into that 10 days away joy thing that I talked about in an earlier video. Subscribe to the channel, save the playlist, Drop "I'm here for it" in the comments below. Let me know one thing you're thankful for. What are you going to dream up? And save this video. Remember to come back to it. Be blessed, be well, be free.